today than ever. And we will try to share about renewable raw materials, biodegradability and compostability of man-made cellulose, for example, fibers, on both sides of the spectrum. And for this, I'm very happy to welcome Camilla Skjonin-Jorgensen. Hello, Camilla.
Hello.
You're the Sustainability, Materials and Innovation Manager for Bestseller in Denmark, right?
Yes.
And Johannes Stefan from Lansing in Austria.
Hello.
Hello. You are the Commercial Director for Europe and Americas and Turkey, I think.
Yes, exactly.
So Johannes, what is Lansing? Can you remind us in a quick presentation what it is?
Yes, what is Lansing? So everyone that usually goes to the PV knows the Lansing booth very well. It's usually one of the bigger booths. We are a fiber producer. We produce viscose fibers, modal fibers, and lyocell fibers. So 3 different generations of fibers made from wood. And we do that based from our production site here in Austria in a small town called Lansing. So the town's name is the same name as our company. And we've been doing this since the 1930s approximately. And we do that on 3 continents. So we have really a global presence with our production sites. And we have teams all over the world in retail markets and also in production markets and supply chain markets. And we work together with our supply chain, so our customers, and also brands like bestseller brands, and also very well with Camilla. We will share a bit on that collaboration later on, brands like bestseller brands. They transform our products into really great products, very sustainable products. We have a very long relationship together with Camilla and bestseller.
Sure. So at Lansing, you use a technology called Refibra. What is that exactly?
Yes, exactly. So our Refibra technology, and I will say 1-2 sentences on a bit of the history. So if you look at our production site here at Lansing, it's already very old, but there's a very old history long before that, centuries before that. And it used to be a site where there was a paper production mill. It was a very small scale mill.
When was it?
And it was the 15th century, sometime in the end of the 15th century. So really more than 400 years ago, there was a production site already, very small scale, handmade paper. And for those of you who are familiar with paper production, paper, of course, now is produced also from wood, from recycled paper, but back then it was produced from waste textiles. So many people don't know that, but it was a normal raw material back then. It was the only raw material for paper production. And here at the site, the way it worked is that people collected, there were waste collectors, they collected waste from here, from the surrounding areas here, and they brought it to the site. And at the site, this waste textiles was chopped very small, and it was produced, and it was sorted first and then chopped and then produced into a pulp. And that pulp was then used to produce paper, different quality grades of paper. And then this paper received a watermark on top of it showing where it comes from. And that paper came from this site, and it was very normal across Europe. So you will find that in many different locations. And that's a bit the history of textile recycling. It's a very old idea, which now has a kind of a revolution, because many things have changed from the way textiles were recycled back then to the way textiles are recycled today. And our Refibra technology is pretty much in its essence very similar to the process back then. So we also have, we get collected waste, it's sorted, it's then also chopped into small pieces, it's made into a pulp. And this pulp is then blended with our normal virgin wood pulp, and this roughly in a 30%, 70% share at the moment. And then we put it to our lyocell production process. We have our lyocell production process at different sites around the world, and this goes into our lyocell production process, and we produce a lyocell fiber, and that's what we call our tensile lyocell fiber with Refibra technology. So it's a technology where we use virgin resources, so wood pulp in that case, and we also use recycled old textile resources, and they come from post-industrial waste, so that's cutting waste from garment production, but it also comes from post-consumer waste, so really old garments that cannot be used, reused, or upcycled or repaired any longer. They also go into our production process. So that's the way it works roughly.
When did you shift from making papers to making this?
Good, yeah, and that history of Lansing as here as a production site of different materials starts very early, as I said, in the 15th century. And as a fiber producer, the production has started in the 1930s. And before that, there was a paper mill, an industrial paper mill. And before that, there was this water-powered paper mill, which was powered by this small river here in Lenzing, the Aga River, which powered that mill. And there were different mills along this Aga River. And one of these mills was here in Lenzing. And some of the buildings that were built at that time, you will still find here at the production site. They look almost the same as if you compare it to old pictures. So it's really interesting to see how that process of textile, of using textile as a raw material for producing a new product, how that worked back then and how it works today. And there are many similarities between the process. So in the essence, it's similar, but there are also many differences, of course, and some challenges that we see in the industry today. And I think you can sum it up to 3 differences that we see in the industry today. Number one is, of course, the volume of these raw materials. At that time, if you look these old stories and archives, it was really a very rare raw material. These waste textiles. It was hard to get. It was only collected by certified collectors. It was forbidden even to bring these raw materials outside of the country because it was used in paper production, and paper demand was really high at that time. And today, of course, we all know there are millions of tons of textile waste every year. We don't even know what to do with it. So it's a very different starting point as it was back then. And number 2 is also the complexity of this raw material. So if you compare it to the time when we had paper production, this mostly was linen fabrics, wool fabrics, so very simple fabrics, simple constructions. Today, one of the big challenges the industry faces is that we have very complex fabrics. We have blends, we have tri-blends, we have synthetic fibers, we have natural fibers, cellulosic fibers, and so on. We have zippers, we have buttons, we have different applications on the fabric. So it's really complex fabrics that makes it very difficult to recycle them. And again, that's one of the challenges we see today. And then the third challenge, of course, is the demands on the end product. So back then it was paper in different quality grades. So it was to some degree an inferior product from the product complexity. But today the demands are extremely high. It needs to be a uniform fiber. It needs to be really a high performance fiber. It has to have the same quality all the time. It has to be, must be used in different applications and so on and so forth. So it's really different.
For example?
Now, our lyocell fiber, tensile lyocell fiber, this is the outcome of that process that is going into many different applications. So usually when someone asks me that, I recommend them to go to one of the bestseller brands, because usually you have a very wide range of products that contain our fibers. So it goes into knitted fabrics, it goes into woven fabrics, it goes into all kinds of apparel, starting from denim to dresses to shirts to skirts. We also have a lot of products in home textiles. So it's a product that is very liked also in home textiles, in bed sheets, for example, because it has certain characteristics like moisture management. So it keeps the body very cool and dry. It's a very smooth fiber. It has a very smooth surface, and that means it's also very gentle on the skin, and it has a lot of characteristics that just make it a very good fiber. And it's also a very sustainable production process, very clean production process, and it's also biodegradable and compostable in different environments. So even if there's no better use at the end of the lifetime, it's not going to be reused. It will turn back to nature, more or less. It will biodegrade in different environments, and that's some of the deeper characteristics of our fiber. That.
Thank you, Camilla. So, can you explain what is the Forward Lab within Bestseller? Why was it created? What is the purpose of it?
The Fashion Forward Lab's name comes from our sustainability strategy, which is called Fashion Forward, with the underline bringing fashion forward until we are climate positive, fair for all, and circular by design. So this is our ultimate goal that we want to reach. And we know in order to reach this ultimate goal, we need to work with innovation, because we need to invent some new ways of working in the fashion industry.
Because consumers were asking for it, or?
No, this is, you can say on the Bestseller corporate level, this is our goal in terms of sustainability, that we want to reach this because we want to make sure in a responsible way that we produce the best that we can with as low impact as possible. And right now, on the material side, something needs to happen in order for the industry, on an industry level, to reach these goals that we have with sustainability. We need companies like Lensing that produce these more sustainable fiber choices that we can use. But we also need to look at how to recycle the garments that we use, that we make, in order to become circular by design and climate positive. So we work with a lot of innovations in Bestseller and have done that for several years. But we lacked a place where we could talk about it, sort of a scene, both a scene in talks, but also actually a physical scene where we could showcase. And that's where we came up with the idea to create a lab. So we have now the Fashion Forward Lab, which is where we experiment our way to a more sustainable fashion industry. And the lab name indicates that this is not fixed and finished solutions that we work with. This is solutions that might be ready in some years to come.
Can you give us examples of right now recycled or innovative materials you use at Bestseller and why?
Yeah. There are a lot of these projects that we work with in the Innovation Lab that are under NDAs, which means that we can't talk about them right now, but we'll do, of course, as soon as it's possible. But we'll work a lot with innovations that have circularity as an aspiration. So we also work with Lensing's materials in this lab. We are right now looking into projects where we work with looking at the compostability and biodegradability of a tensile model. And we are testing how long it takes for it to biodegrade and compost in certain environments. So these t-shirts that we are making under this project will be both recyclable because it's a 100% cellulosic materials, which is not easy, but more easy to recycle than some of the blends that we see. And is something that the innovators that we work with right now are able to solve. So we know this is a solution going forward, that it can be recycled. But we also want to know what happens if it doesn't end up in these waste stream structures, because one of the problems with circularity is the waste stream structures are not established right now. So what happens if it ends up in, say, in the wrong environments? How long will it take before it disappears? So these are sort of the things that we experiment with in the lab together with one of Bestseller's brands. We're also working with Lensing Carbon Zero's fiber choices, where the impacts of the production is offset. So this is quite interesting for us because when we want to be climate positive, we need solutions like this going forward. So we are also working with the supply chain and the brands to find ways of using these new options from companies like Lensing. We're also working with a project in Bangladesh where we are looking at industrial waste, especially for our organic cotton products. So we make, you can say, a zero waste product. If there is waste in the cutoff, then it's sent back to a recycler, and then it's recycled again into new styles. So we make sure that nothing is wasted of that valuable organic cotton that we source actually in a direct-to-farm approach. And then we have some innovators that can take high cellulosic input and make a new high-quality yarn out of it. And we also work with chemical recycling for polyester, and we look into bio-based polyesters also. So we're actually also looking into new circular business models and into the processes that we use for our garments to make them as good as possible. So it's a very holistic approach to making fashion that we are tackling in the Innovation Lab.
Yeah, it's such a big amount of work for.
Yeah, it is.
So Johannes, why and when did you start this collaboration with Lensing? What did you find together?
With Bestseller, yeah, I mean, as Camilla said, it's a very old relationship that we have. It's a very long-term relationship. We work with Bestseller both on a headquarter level, like with Camilla, but we also have very strong collaborations in the regions where we are active. And I think that's this relationship has been going on for a long time. And what are the reasons for that? I think it's hard to really pinpoint, afterwards, what are the reasons? But I think we have a very similar approach to sustainability. We don't really see it as something to be scared of, to be afraid of. We see it something that opens up great opportunities of collaboration.
Of positive, yeah.
Exactly, something very positive. It has a lot of potential for innovation. We also no company can do this alone. Neither we can do it. We need our partners in the supply chain. We need our partners at brands who come up with ideas, who challenge us as a producer, who somehow also force us to always come up with something new. And that's a bit the background, I think, also of that relationship. And if you look at our sustainability strategies, of course, both of our companies publish them very frequently. They're very detailed. They have very bold goals. They have goals where we don't even know every single step how we are going to reach them. But nevertheless, I think both of our companies, and not only the companies, but it's more about the people in both of our companies, are extremely committed. And I think that's really what's required to make this circularity idea and sustainability in fashion work. No company can do it alone. It requires tough decisions very often. For a company like us, it means that we have to make big investment decisions for a very uncertain outcome. We have, for example, like also Bestseller did, set science-based targets. So we have really a roadmap to become net carbon neutral in not such a long period of time, if you look at it. And this is not something that you can do under, I would say, normal corporate circumstances. It requires a huge commitment from everyone in our teams. And I don't think that you will find many people in Bestseller or at Lenzing who don't really believe truly that this is the right thing to do.
Sure.
And I think if you reach that point, then that allows you to collaborate on a different level. You can be innovative, you can try out new things, you can be creative, you can try out new things. Even if they don't work out, then you will still have a very close collaboration. And I think that's what makes
Sure.
this relationship so successful.
And Camilla was talking about a t-shirt made with Tencel, right? Can you tell us what are the benefits of Tencel? What are the assets of it in terms of, I don't know, biodegradability or compostability? What?
Yeah, Tencel is the brand name that Lenzing is using for the fibers. So we have Tencel Live, so we have Tencel Model, and we have Fibra, also the technology that is also under the Tencel brand name. So, and we also have EcoVero, and actually all of these fibers are some that Bestseller is using. And the quality of Lenzing's fibers is that it's high quality. So it's, when we design for circularity, this is garments that can last for a long time because Lenzing is quality approving these materials that we use. And so that's something we value a lot, high quality. And then they are recyclable. And as I said before, if they end up in the wrong environments, then they also are compostable or biodegradable. But of course, we as a company and the designers that use these fibers need to consider how they blend them, because we can mess up that process quite a lot if we put in too much polyester or too much nylon into the blends. So there is also a big, and that's, I think, on an industry level, something that we share, a challenge with how we blend the materials going forward. So we are making sure that we design for circularity. So there are innovators out there that can make sure that these fibers can be recycled. Our ultimate goal is actually to design for circularity and not design for end life. So we make sure that the resources that we use when we make a garment can stay in a loop for as long as possible.
Sure.
But it's very important that there is also an end life perspective of it, and Lenzing hits all of those marks, which makes us, I would say, comfortable when using them because we know that they are well thought through. And then we admire the sustainability work that Lenzing is also doing and their effort to contribute to making this fashion industry more sustainable. And I think that's an important actually thing to notice, that we have an industry problem. So this is not a brand problem when we talk about sustainability. It's an industry problem, and it can only be solved if we work together on an industry level. And that's why the collaboration between Bestseller and a company like Lenzing is so important, because we can't just go out to our suppliers and demand them to offer us more sustainable materials. We need them to be connected to the right players. So we also make sure that Lenzing is introduced to the suppliers that we have chosen in Bestseller to work with. And thereby we create a system that makes it easier for our designers and buyers to operate in.
Sure. And I'm wondering, maybe it's a stupid question, but when you use this kind of materials, Lenzing fabrics, do you use differently? I mean, in terms of style, does it look different? Do you? address yourself to a different kind of customers, or do you want to address to the maximum amount of customers? Do you use it differently?
We use them according to the quality that they represent. So Tencel Lyocell is let's say, it is a different quality than Ecovero, which is a viscose. Oh. We regard the Tencel Lyocell as a higher quality than the viscose quality, but it's also a quality that we use on different styles because it's often a little bit heavier than the viscose. Mm-hmm. So we say we apply them where it makes sense. But the good thing about the Tencel quality portfolio of fibers is that they can be used for a broad range of different styles, from woven to jersey to even outerwear. And I think actually is also beginning to establish themselves as an activewear solutions, which is an alternative to polyester and activewear segment, sure, which is quite interesting also. So we see that we can use it for a broad range of different products.
Sure. Johannes, can you give us examples of maybe new materials that you're working on, your projects, your initiatives, your innovations?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the way we think about it is always, how do we make the same product or a similar product, which is already a good product, with different types of raw materials? So we use, the end product will look the same for the consumer, but it contains different raw materials. That's what we do with our Refibra technology. But of course, we're also working on having the same raw material, but different fiber characteristics. For example, different colors, different colors for different applications, for example, for certain specialty applications, like Camilla mentioned, also for activewear, for example. So we do a lot here. On our Refibra technology, this is not a finished technology. This is always work in progress. So we continue to upgrade this technology, and upgrade means we increase the amount of waste that is used in that fiber. We increase the range of waste that is used in the fiber. Camilla mentioned a really good point with circular by design. That's again one of the key challenges. So at the moment, this limits really the use or the different types of textile waste materials. Whenever you have a blend, it gets very difficult, very costly, very hard to recycle that and to make a new fiber out of it. So, but nevertheless, I mean, I think we cannot wait as a company until we have circularity by design. We have in parallel to also research and develop new technologies that can also use these kind of blends and complicated structures and so on. So we continue to innovate on our Refibra technology. I think, our ultimate goal, even if I cannot write down or say when exactly we will reach that, but it should be a very normal raw material for us. Just next to a virgin pulp, a wood pulp, it should be a normal raw material, and that's a bit the aspiration we have. Mm-hmm. We don't talk so much about it as a company, but it's a scalable product already now. I mean, this conversation is also about the vision, but to some degree, the vision is already reality. We can produce thousands of tons. It has the same characteristic as our normal Tencel Lyocell fibers, so it's not inferior in any way. It can be used for all kinds of applications, like a completely new virgin fiber. So that's a lot of our research goes into that. And Camilla also mentioned another innovation that we launched last year. This is our True Carbon Zero initiative. So I already mentioned earlier that we have clear targets to become net carbon neutral as a company, but this is a process, and what we feel as individuals and as a company is that we also need to take care of what happens until that point, until we are carbon neutral, and also until that point we have to take responsibility for our carbon emissions. So we launched this Carbon Zero initiative where we offer our Tencel Lyocell and Modal products as carbon neutral, certified carbon neutral fibers. So as if you are a brand, if you're a retailer, mm-hmm. you can also use this product to communicate with your customers, with your audience. One challenge, everyone in the industry faces is what is sustainability, right? There are different definitions of it, different terms. It gets very technical if you go into the details. But carbon zero is something that basically everyone understands. You have a carbon footprint, you try to reduce it. You have a long-term plan, which also Bestseller has. But until that point, we try to come up with a solution. That's our True Carbon Zero initiative, where we already offer carbon neutral fibers, and we do that by contributing to different initiatives to reduce carbon emission around the world. So different projects we are collaborating with other partners with.
Okay. Camilla, is it possible for a brand like bestseller to use only sustainable materials today? Are we getting there, or is it still a long shot?
We're getting there. It's I think it's not going to be easy to only use sustainable materials, but we are definitely getting there. The problem is that it sounds easy. So people think that we can just go out and source it. But even a company like Lensing also needs to be able to grow with the demand. So we need to make sure that it is also available out there in the supply chain. And for example, with organic cotton, this is under 1% of the total market share of cotton. So we couldn't just throw ourselves over organic cotton and only source that, because it's simply not available today, and it takes up to 3 to 6 years to convert a conventional cotton field into an organic cotton field. And so there are some limitations to how fast we can do it. But it's definitely possible, but it's important that it happens on an industry collaboration. So we are sure that the suppliers out there can also follow with the demand.
Sure.
And then we need innovation to follow also. There are still some places where we have some challenges around recycled polyester, for example. Making sure that it can go in infinite loops is still a challenge. So we can do recycled polyester today out of PET bottles, but in the future we need it to come from textiles. And we need that recycled polyester to be able to go into an infinite loop, because there is no end life possibility for polyester. It's there forever and ever.
Yeah.
So this is something we need to work on to be able to solve that issue. It's the same for, we can do with the Lensing fibers today, we can source our man-made cellulosics from a responsible source that is FSC or PEFC certified and under responsible productions. But we need innovators to be able to take that, you would say, that fashion that we do in man-made cellulosics and recycle that infinitely. And that is also something that is still lacking. So we can use more sustainable fiber choice to a large degree today.
There is more to do, but something is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, both of you, for being here. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Johannes.
Thank you.
For these explanations. And thank you all for watching us. Please, let's stay connected, as we have a lot more coming about fashion and Première Vision. Goodbye and keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for inviting us.